Okay, we'll explore a little bit next what buyers really want in today's markets. I mean, the first thing buyers always want is they want the niche. I've heard that word so many times. 3 out of 4 buyers that we talk to in the first 2 or 3 sentences of telling us what they want to buy, they use the word niche. I mean, they feel like it gives the company competitive advantage if they're really focused and they're really the kingpin in one segment or another. Mark Twain had a good saying for that. He said, "Put all your eggs in one basket and then watch the basket." It really is power. It's kind of competitive armor. In fact, it reminds me of some of the words of wisdom from my Texas client. He said, "You got to be focused. The only thing in the middle of the road is yellow stripes and dead armadillos." Focus really does add value. We sold a company a few years ago in Minnesota. The company was kind of had 2 niches. 40%, it's a thermoformer, 40% of its business was snowmobile parts. And 40% of its business was anti-static packaging. And 20% was other assorted stuff. And we thought, we knew the recreational market guys were paying a ton, as were the packaging guys. So we thought, this is going to be great. And we went out to both of those and some assorted other buyers. And the recreational vehicle guys would come to the plant. That we had the top buyers come. They would come to the plant and they would look around and they would say, "Oh, we love these fenders that won't crack at 50 below. But what are those people doing over there with hairnets and booties?" They couldn't relate. And the packaging people would come in and say, "We love the solutions you found for packaging problems, but is that a snowmobile fender?" They couldn't relate. Both of those buyers fell out. We ended up selling the company and selling it pretty well. But I always think we could have gotten 1 or 2 times earnings more had it been either one of those niche segments. Buyers also look for end customer trends. When you talk about the segments, healthcare is always great. Anything related to medical is great. The demographics are natural. You're going to need more healthcare products over time. Pet products are great. The pet industry seems to be recession resistant. It's really a nice segment. So there are certain places where the customers themselves make your company a lot more valuable. Buyers also always look for strong second-tier people, and that's becoming increasingly critical. Nobody wants the company where everything depends on the owner. They want a good team of people. We sold a company in San Francisco a few years ago that was a plastic packaging company that did packaging for the computer giants, HP, Apple, Compaq, everybody. They were really good. We had a bunch of bids on the company. We invited our favorite 3 buyers to visit. The first buyer came. He toured the plant. He said, then we went into a conference room, private executive area where he could ask questions. And he said, "This place is beautiful. I love this operation. You do a great job. But tell me, how do you do this? I mean, you make so much money, and you're dealing with such hard customers. These big guys are really tough, and you do a great job. What's the trick?" And the owner sat back and crossed his arms and said, "It's right here." The buyer was gone. 30 minutes later, they left, never to return. Buyers don't want "it's right here." They want a team of people that can do something together. And it's really critical. Plastics News does this series on what keeps owners up at night. More and more and more, you're hearing a lot of those people talk about the difficulties in obtaining and keeping talent. It's becoming more and more important. Buyers want something that will take them 2 steps forward in people, not 1 step back. It's really critical. Buyers also want proprietary capabilities. Anything that you can do that other people can't. In fact, Aristotle Onassis has a quote that I like on this. He says, "The secret of all great business is knowing something that nobody else knows." Patented products are great in the selling market. There are a lot of other ways too, though, to build proprietary advantage. we had a client years ago that had some proprietary material combinations, things that didn't normally work together that he had found he had made to work. He kept it very quiet. He produced products that nobody else could produce, and it was a big advantage. Suppliers who know more about what their customer needs than their customer knows, that's very common in plastics. We hear that all the time. We often, at the very tail end of a sale engagement, a buyer will require some contact with customers. And the way we would typically do that is the buyer would hire somebody to do an independent customer satisfaction survey. He would act like he had been hired by the client, would call the customer and say, what do you think? What kind of service are you getting? How do you feel about the company? We had one of those surveys going on, and one of our customers was asked how important the service was to them. And he said, you know, I think if they quit telling us what we need and when we need it, we'd have to close for a month or two just to figure it out. Oh my. It was really a nice comment. It was really a good strength for our client. Also, suppliers in plastics in particular are getting critical today by providing a little bit of ancillary service. Maybe it's packaging, maybe it's finishing, maybe it's decorative. Those kinds of things all make the company a whole lot more cemented in the relationship. Any questions about the value things?
You mentioned earlier that buyers don't want the owner to have the intellectual property in their head. But when you talk about patents and having proprietary products, how does that affect the price of the company?
Pretty much always increases it. It's really a good value. Especially if it's defensible. If it's a patent that there are 10 other patents that are right next door, maybe not. But if it's defensible, it's a very good value booster.
So your best advice to a potential seller would be to take that information out of his head
and patent it. Yeah, although there are situations that we've had where a seller had the material combination guy, he wouldn't patent it because he would have to write it down. He didn't want anybody to figure out kind of what his tricks of the trade were. So it's not always patented, but it's stronger.
Sometimes we talked about end markets. How about by process? I think a lot of times we assume we're talking about injection molders. How about thermoformers, rotomolders, extruders? Is there interest in all the different processes? Is there anything that's hotter now than others, or is that also cyclical?
There is difference, and there is stuff that rotomolders are very hot right now, and it does tend to be a little bit trendy. Also, the thing you see in some industries, like for example, we sold a lot of automotive processors. Automotive processors can't sell to everybody. Half the world doesn't want them. They only get bought by other people who understand that automotive cycle and are comfortable. So a little bit of a difference.
Do you have experiences in your example where you had the company with the snowmobile capabilities and then the packaging capabilities? Do you ever have buyers come in and say, I just want that piece of the business?
Yeah, we do. In fact, in that case, we talked about that with people. But sometimes it's pretty hard to cut up. If it's all being done in one plant with a lot of common people, it's not so easy to cut out just part of it. And maybe the part that you leave behind doesn't sell as well.
How difficult, you mentioned a lot about people with this, and that the buying company wants to retain the good people and,
right,
and the legacy knowledge that they have also.
Right.
How difficult it is for a seller to convince top people to stay and allay any fears they might have of cutting down on people once a buyer comes in, or having them have to shift what they're doing quite a bit. Are there any issues with that?
There are issues with employees being afraid more than, I mean, I don't think we have ever had any significant employee terminated by a buyer. The buyers want them, but the employees may be a little bit afraid. You know, I'm going to have a new boss. It's kind of tricky. So yes, that does happen. We always tell people, keep it quiet as long as you can until closing, if you can. Absolutely, because you're really good employees. They may not, if they know you're for sale, they're probably not going to put their resumes out the next day. But the good people get approached all the time. You don't want them to feel insecure for a moment and say, maybe I better think about it. So it is an issue.
How about keeping the keeping a potential sale a secret from customers? Do buyers usually want to talk to customers, and at what point is it okay for buyers to make?
Buyers do want to talk to customers, and we don't want them to. Often the solution that I mentioned, where they do kind of some customer survey sort of thing, is something, and we usually listen in on those, or somebody from the seller shop listens in. Just because you want to make sure they're not saying inappropriate things and they're not telling them that we're considering sale. But that's kind of one way to handle that.